What happens when the son of an MMA legend turns a pro wrestling event into a crime scene and streams it live for the world to see? One moment, Raja Jackson, son of UFC icon Quinton "Rampage" Jackson, was a guest at a small wrestling show in Los Angeles. The next, he was storming the ring, slamming a wrestler to the mat and unleashing a flurry of punches that left the man bloodied, hospitalized, and fighting for his health. But this wasn't just a heated moment gone wrong. This was broadcast in real time, egged on by toxic live stream chats, fueled by peers who told him to get his receipt, and made worse by a father's desperate attempt to spin the chaos after the fact. This is the story of how a night of wrestling theatrics spiraled into one of the ugliest viral incidents the sport has ever seen, and why it may change the Jackson family legacy forever. August 23rd, Los Angeles. The Knox Experience, a pro wrestling showcase hosted by the Knox Pro Wrestling Academy, was supposed to be just another night of entertainment for fans. Among the crowd that evening was Raja Jackson, the 25-year-old son of UFC legend Quinton "Rampage" Jackson. Raja wasn't just attending, he was streaming the whole thing live on his Kick account, giving his followers a front row seat to every moment. That's when things took a sharp turn. Stuart Smith, better known by his wrestling persona Psycho Stu, made his way over to Raja during the backstage chaos of the event. Staying in character, Stu cracked a beer can against Raja's head. To Stu, this was just part of the theatrics, a spur-of-the-moment stunt meant to build hype for the show. But the problem was simple: Raja wasn't a wrestler, and he wasn't in on the act. The can shot left him stunned and furious. In the footage, you can hear wrestlers around them immediately telling Stu he'd gone too far. "He's not a worker, bro," one warned. Realizing the mistake, Stu apologized not once but several times, and trainers stepped in to smooth things over. At first, it looked like the tension might settle. Raja and Stu shook hands on camera, even agreeing to turn the accident into a stage moment later in the show. Reno Anoa'i, one of the trainers, assured them they could make something out of it. For a brief moment, cooler heads seemed to prevail, but beneath the surface, a storm was already brewing. And as the night unfolded, what began as a misunderstanding would spiral into something far more violent, shocking, and unforgettable. On the surface, the conflict had been resolved. Raja got the VIP treatment, front row seats, time backstage with the crew, and the promise of a scripted moment where he'd get his payback in the ring. Psycho Stu had apologized multiple times, the trainers had brokered peace, and everyone seemed ready to move on. But Raja wasn't just in the building that night, he was online. As he sat in the crowd scrolling through his Kick livestream chat, the tone shifted. Viewers began egging him on, calling him soft for letting Stu get away with the can shot. Others demanded he prove himself in front of the fans. What had been a genuine apology backstage was quickly drowned out by the toxic echo chamber of strangers spamming his chat. Then came another push from someone closer. Wrestler Andre Joel Hudson, described by peers as a hothead, whispered to Raja that he should give him his receipt. In wrestling lingo, that meant it was time to hit back to even the score. On camera, Raja echoed the sentiment himself: "As long as I get my lick back, I'm straight." It was no longer about a beer can, it was about pride, image, and proving something to an audience, both in the arena and behind the screen, right? By the time the main tag match rolled around, Raja wasn't thinking like a spectator anymore. He was thinking like someone who had something to prove, someone who was about to turn a scripted apology into a brutal reality. The main tag match was underway. For most fans in the arena, it was just another high-energy spectacle. But for Raja Jackson, the moment he'd been waiting for had arrived. As Psycho Stu hit a spear on his opponent, his back turned to where Raja was sitting. The livestream caught Raja muttering, "They told me to hit him and just leave. I'm telling you, I'm gonna hit him as many times as I can. Watch." It was clear this wasn't improvisation, it was premeditation. Suddenly, Raja stormed the ring. In one motion, he lifted Stu off the ground, slammed him to the mat, and mounted him. Then came the blows, over 20 in rapid succession, delivered to a man who appeared unconscious after either the slam or the very first blow. The scene was horrifying. Blood poured, teeth scattered, and Stu's body went limp as Raja continued striking. Ringside wrestlers rushed to pull Raja off, but it took several men to pry him away. Douglas Malo, one of the wrestlers who intervened, later recalled the sight. He was choking on his own injuries. Somebody reminded me there were kids there, and I was like, oh my god. The family-friendly show had just turned into a real-life nightmare. Children in the crowd could be seen crying, confused, asking their parents if what they just witnessed was real. Even veteran wrestlers said they'd never seen anything like it. When the dust settled, Stu was unconscious, badly injured, and rushed to the hospital. Reports confirmed broken bones in his face, massive dental injuries, and his condition listed as critical but stable. For Raja, the damage wasn't just physical, it was reputational, legal, and irreversible. He had just turned a staged storyline into a full-blown criminal assault, all while the world watched live. The aftermath was instant and brutal. Within hours, clips of the attack spread across social media like wildfire. Viewers couldn't believe what they had seen. This wasn't some wild wrestling stunt gone wrong. This was raw live streamed for the world. Knox Pro Wrestling, the promotion hosting the event, released a scathing statement the very next day. They condemned Raja's behavior as a selfish, irresponsible act of violence against Mr. Smith and made it clear what happened was not part of any storyline. The attack was unscripted, unprofessional, and reprehensible. The wrestling community was shaken. Veteran journalist Dave Meltzer called the act the worst thing I've ever seen in a ring. A stunning remark given his decades covering everything from hardcore matches to infamous botched spots. If someone like Meltzer was labeling this the lowest of the low, you knew just how far out of bounds Raja had gone. And then came the police. Both the New York Times and TMZ reported that the Los Angeles Police Department had opened an investigation into the incident. Raja's own livestream, which captured his intent and the aftermath, became the very evidence that could send him straight to court. This wasn't just a viral clip anymore, it was a potential felony case, and Raja Jackson had turned himself into Exhibit A. As outrage spread online, all eyes turned to Rampage, the MMA legend whose name carried weight in both sports and entertainment. How would he address the fact that his son had just turned a wrestling show into a crime scene? Rampage's first public move was damage control. He jumped on X posting, "I don't condone my son's actions at all. It was bad judgment and a work that went wrong. Raja is an MMA fighter, not a pro wrestler, and had no business involved in an event like this." He even added that Raja had suffered a concussion from sparring days before, almost as if to suggest impaired judgment played a role. But his words rang hollow to many. For one, the attack wasn't just a work gone wrong. Raja had been filmed backstage plotting revenge, then telling his livestream audience he planned to hit Stu as many times as he could. That's not an accident, it's intent. Even worse, weeks before this incident, Rampage himself had admitted on stream that he'd set aside bail money for his sons, joking that while he saved tuition for some of his kids, he saved bail money for Raja and his brother. Now those words sounded less like humor and more like grim foresight. And the PR spin didn't stop there. Some fans pointed out that Rampage's statement seemed less concerned about Stu's condition and more about keeping Kick, the streaming platform, paying him happy. Critics accused him of protecting the bag rather than confronting the violence. For a man who built his reputation on toughness and authenticity, Rampage suddenly looked like someone trying to sweep a disaster under the rug. Instead of cooling the fire, his response only added fuel to the growing backlash. What makes Raja Jackson's meltdown even more disturbing is how preventable it was. The livestream didn't just capture the violence, it helped create it. This is the dark side of IRL streaming. Platforms like Kick and Twitch were designed for entertainment, but in high-pressure moments they can become accelerants. Viewers egg people on not because they care, but because they want chaos. To them, it's content. To the person streaming, it can feel like life or death for their image. And Raja wasn't immune. His insecurities, his anger, and his obsession with image collided in the worst way possible. What should have been a scripted receipt in wrestling terms became a real altercation because an audience of usernames demanded blood. In wrestling, receipts are supposed to be controlled, professional responses between workers who understand the risks. Raja wasn't a worker. He was a volatile outsider whose judgment was being poisoned by validation seeking and peer pressure. In the end, the live stream didn't just broadcast a crime, it shaped it, and it left a question lingering over the entire event. Who's really in control, the performer or the audience behind the screen? For Raja Jackson, the fallout isn't just about one night, it's about everything his last name represents. Being the son of Rampage Jackson comes with both privilege and pressure. Rampage is a UFC legend, a man whose career was built on knockout power, grit, and an unshakable presence in the cage. For years, Raja benefited from that reputation. Now he's stained it. Instead of making headlines for his own athletic achievements, Raja has become infamous for one of the ugliest incidents wrestling has ever seen. And while his victim Stuart Smith fights to recover in critical care, Raja's legacy is being rewritten before it even had a chance to begin. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Stu, the man who tried to smooth things over with multiple apologies, is now being remembered as the receiver of senseless aggression. Raja, who once looked like a rising fighter with a famous last name, is now facing police investigations, public scorn, and the possibility of being remembered only for this aggressive and foolish outburst. And then there's Rampage himself. His response, part denial, part excuse, left many wondering if he truly understood the weight of what his son had done. The irony is cruel. A father who spent his life cultivating respect in combat sports, now forced to defend a son who may have destroyed that respect in one night. For the Jacksons, this wasn't just a brawl gone wrong, it was a legacy-shaking disaster, one that raised a haunting question: do children of legends inherit their greatness or their demons? In just a few hours, what should have been a small wrestling show in Los Angeles spiraled into one of the most disturbing viral moments of the year. A can to the head, a string of apologies, a toxic livestream chat, and a son desperate to prove himself, all of it collided in one brutal action that left Psycho Stu hospitalized and Raja Jackson branded as reckless, unstable, and dangerous. The fallout is still unfolding. Police investigations are reportedly underway. Stu's family continues to update fans on his recovery, and the Jackson name is now tied to chaos, clout chasing, and a public relations nightmare. But beyond the headlines and the finger pointing, there's a larger lesson here. Raja wasn't just fighting a man in a ring, he was fighting an invisible audience of strangers, a digital mob that thrives on pushing people past their limits. The need for online validation didn't just influence him, it consumed him. And that leaves us with a question that goes far beyond one family or one fight. In an age where every mistake can be broadcast live, how much of our behavior is truly ours and how much of it belongs to the audience we're trying to please? Because when the camera stopped rolling that night, the damage wasn't scripted, the blood wasn't fake, and the consequences weren't temporary. They were real, and they'll follow Raja Jackson for the rest of his life. But let us know what you think down in the comments below.